Lynched on CTV, proudly brought to you by Christchurch's #1 dining offer, Sequoia 88 at the Redwood Hotel, a food concept unequalled. Good evening. It's fair to say he's just as iconic as the Christchurch Cathedral, New Zealand's official wizard. He's my special guest, and Lynched starts right now. Good evening to you. Just last month, the Wizard of New Zealand celebrated 40 glorious years of wizardry, of course. So what's he doing with himself now that his public platform has essentially been destroyed? But maybe there's hope. Well, the Wizard is here to explain. And good evening to you.
Good evening.
Now, I refer to you as the Wizard.
Yeah, what do I refer to you as?
Chris will be fine, thanks.
Well, we'll do Chris then. You're not reverent or anything like that.
No, not yet. We're working on that.
Yeah.
So, as a wizard, what's it like being a wizard now? The official Wizard of New Zealand, somebody who's actually respected.
Well, it is interesting that I managed to get the title of wizard legitimated by the university, first of all, which doesn't usually approve of wizards, and then by the government, which is a great help to have the official title, because a lot of people think I'm mad. But if I'm mad, why did the university make me a wizard? And if I'm evil, why did the government make me a wizard? So I'm not mad or evil, but it is an experimental lifestyle. It is very much an experiment.
And I know you're true when you say that, because you're not a stupid person. You've got a double degree in sociology and psychology.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How have those degrees helped you in life as a wizard? Because they have, haven't you? You've always challenged the status quo by being a bit funny, a bit cheeky.
Yeah, it's handy to know a bit about depth psychology, especially, and about how people motivation, what makes them tick. But even more important is how the social system operates, how this bit goes there, and the role here, and authority there, so you can analyse the world around you while you're living in it. But most important of all is there's been a big shift in how we see the world being taking place for the last 100 years with not only psychiatry and psychoanalysis, but also quantum theory, relativity theory. The old ideas of how the world is no longer work very well. So what we're all trying to do now in the university is produce another model of reality, a more accurate one. Meanwhile, the industry and big business is proceeding on the old model and causing havoc in the process.
Do you mean that? Really mean that?
Yeah, the world is in great danger from either a collapse of the economy, because it's all like a big Ponzi scheme, or collapse of the environment through the fact that the factory farm is destroying the food variants of the earth. So the Greens are on the right track to some extent, in that things are pretty bad. So what we need to do is look at it rationally and carefully and thoughtfully and come up with alternative ideas about what life's about. It's not about going shopping or getting rich. Life's about having fun, in my opinion. And that is the critical thing been missing for a long time.
Did it take you a while, or did it take the Christchurch public a while to actually get you? Because you're not just a one-trick pony.
They're only starting now. I think actually just getting the message now after the earthquake, it's been a big surprise to me how popular I am in the city. And it seemed to have happened because of the earthquake, as if something said, well, there's something wrong going on in Christchurch. The rebuild's been handled so badly and so inefficiently, top down all the time, micromanagement, nothing from below. The recognition of the value of our heritage, which is so important for our character, our memory, our soul, and for tourism, has been overlooked completely. In fact, we're having a heritage month next month. I hope you can show something on that to realise what we've lost. We've lost so much. So people are waking up, I think, to the fact things are wrong. But what do you do about it? Get angry and form into a political party? Definitely not. Those days, I think, are over. Political parties are a joke these days, quite frankly.
Do you recall the day of the earthquake? Did you have a thought in your mind thinking, gee, it's over, the cathedral will be down? Because you were saying to me off air before that there was a chance you actually should have been in the cathedral square at the time of the actual bad, powerful earthquake.
Well, 10 minutes before, actually, I go into the square at 1 o'clock. And I parked my little Volkswagen with the two front ends just outside by the spire, you know. But luckily it was 10 to 1. So once again, like our house, we also survived. One of the few houses in our little part of town, which is on Woodham Road, which did survive because we're on a sand dune, and apparently they take the earthquake shock, particularly the elevation one, very well, so we survived. So that was, I was very lucky with it. I didn't know what to think, quite frankly. I didn't know what had happened. It was too much to know. And and Alice, who'd been my companion since 1970 and been a great help to me, she was in the town hall at the time. And that was really terrible a place to be there at that time, because it's a huge, full of teachers, school teachers. It could have been a terrible disaster, but luckily it didn't last that long, and so it stayed up.
When you saw the cathedral down for the first time, do you remember that vividly?
I do.
Explain that to me.
Well, it was really everything I associate with, because I've always stood by the cathedral since 1974. I link up my hat with the police kiosk and the cathedral as a series of these aspirational symbols going to aspire. I see myself as a kind of a Gothic figure too. So it was it's my stage. And that's why I came to Christchurch in 1974. I looked round first to see what city would be best, and Christchurch was ideal. Good square, lots of people in the square, shops, buses, cinemas. It was a really good spot to start.
It wasn't there? Cinemas around, yeah.
Yeah, because what I say when I'm speaking is something that will not be supported by big business, or by the universities, or by the churches. It's a different view, and therefore I won't get any chance of getting any hearing within any organisation which requires money and a studio or a printing press. But no one can stop someone speaking in a public square. They tried for 3 months to ban me and to arrest me for speaking there. But I did various tricks. I wore a gas mask. I spoke in tongues.
Because you were threatened to be arrested. In fact, I think you were arrested, weren't you, when you first were doing your speeches, your seminars, your public speaking sessions in 1974.
Yeah, at the very beginning.
The council tried to get rid of you.
They've always tried until they realised I was a tourist attraction. Then I became their friend, and suddenly I was part of the Christchurch Canterbury tourism. I went overseas for Christchurch. But it's gone, it's shut down again. There are too many bureaucrats in Christchurch.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, and they're stopping me from doing anything at the moment because they don't understand someone who's not doing it for money or for some sort of political reason, just doing it for fun isn't a good enough reason.
It's because you were very hard to pigeonhole, because it was very hard for people to say, are you an entertainer? Are you a philosopher? Are you a teacher? Are you a comedian? Are you a public figure? What do you see yourself as during, perhaps can we say without sounding offensive, the glory years of the Wizard and the Cathedral?
I think I'm a catalyst. I like to spark debate and to question things we take for granted. That's why I do a South Up World, Into That Universe. I like to say what we don't really know enough yet to be so sure we're right. A little more modesty is required, a little more care and thought. So that's part of it. The other part is I just love showing off. I really always have done as a small boy, you know. Look at me, I'm doing funny things. Watch me, mummy, and those sort of stuff. Like little Roo in the Pooh stories. Look at me, Piglet, look at me, Pooh, and jump, jump, jump. So it was always there. And I've always admitted I'm doing it for my own fun, but not to get money or get power, just to have fun.
Well, I want to talk about that fun. We're going to take a break first, but I want to talk about the fun you have had over the years with some of the... some of perhaps the more nutty speakers in the Christchurch Cathedral Square, which is always great fun watching you have debates with them. So we'll discuss that, and I also want to get your take on the rebuild of Christchurch. Stay with us. Welcome back to Lynched on CTV. My guest tonight, can you tell, is the Wizard of New Zealand, and it's absolutely great to have you here. Wizard, I want to ask you this question. You've seen the square transform, evolve, collapse, die in so many different ways. In your view, when did the square start to lose its magic? And when I say magic, I'm not meaning the cathedral, that was always there. But, I mean, the cinemas went, the buses moved out. There was a sense that the square was not the centre point of Christchurch.
It happened in the 1990s, actually. It was going bad before then a bit with the building of these gigantic buildings in the wrong places. They didn't look for the location of a giant building, which could be one block out. They put it right in the centre so it cast shadows, like Government Life Building. It was always in danger of being swamped. But when they took the buses away, and it no longer went there to get your bus in the evenings, the numbers went right down. Then they built these gigantic superstores on Morehouse Avenue within walking distance, so all the shops couldn't survive. When the shops go, the cinemas went with them, and the buses. By 1990s, late 90s, the owners of the square were tourists looking rather puzzled, or tour buses coming to buy a few bit of sheepskin and off again.
That's right.
It was dead.
It
died. So that's why I was finished. I thought, what can I do? But after the earthquake, I said, well, there is another spot here. And this is New Regent Street, which is a beautiful part of the old Christchurch. It's always been a good social area, lots of little places to have a meal or drink coffee. The trams go down there, the trams are back, and it's where I'm going to speak when I begin speaking, and after 4 years I start again in a few weeks in New Regent Street. It's not a bad spot. There's a garden at the end, don't bother people. And the shopkeepers are all small shopkeepers, not big chain stores like Restart, which are just chain stores, most of them. It's real people with little shops running their own businesses, and it's a very nice place to be.
I'm sure they will appreciate you being there, because New Regent Street, as you say, many small local business owners, but they need something to attract them there. It's not just good enough, is it, just to have little wee...
I don't pay for my coffee in Regent Street. And also...
Free coffee!
Of course. Like to feed the birds come. But I've also got my two-ended Volkswagen is a big attraction in Christchurch, and that is now the owners of the street, the shopkeeper consist to put it right in the middle of the street on a red carpet. So it's part of the street will be my mobile sculpture, because that's what it is really. It's not really a vehicle to be used. It is to be able to look at and see as a work of art. So the VW will be there, the Beetle, myself there with my other wizards, and this is what I've been doing recently, recruiting, because it's the time we need wizards around, and I might discuss that with you, but it's why this is available now, the wizard calendar in a shop. Look at this,
everybody.
That's in the little shop in New Regent Street, the Kiwi Gifts, and has a page of wizard information on it and pictures of all sorts. Recommend that to your viewers.
Very nice.
And
the Wizard's unique Southern Hemisphere calendar, I've got to say, it is pretty impressive. Where can we get this from?
From New Regent Street's your best bet. You can get it at the University Bookshop and Scorpio, but the best place is there.
You know, I was saying to you off camera, this reminds me of a sort of a history lesson of Christchurch in a way. I know you've got other things here.
Yes,
like
I've got early days in there as well as later. My mother's in there, and me in my suit looking very respectable and so on.
Those were the days.
I'll give you a copy of that anyway.
Would you? If I get a free one?
Yeah.
Tell me about the Cathedral Square now. Do you think that there's hope? Do you think that, and I want to talk to you about the cathedral shortly, but the actual square itself, what will it take to revitalise it? Let me give you my idea, and you can tell me whether you think it's awful or not. Why not create it like a little mini Times Square? Or you're going to hate that idea, too commercial? But what's going to create a buzz again? I'm thinking a little mini Times Square, cafes, small restaurants, boutique stores, all right around the perimeter. Can that happen?
That's what everyone's doing all over the world. Everyone does that, and it doesn't work enough to make Christchurch that important. What Christchurch needs is something unique that isn't anywhere else. One idea. And I'm not getting older now. I mean, I'm over 80, so it's the time's coming when I can be recognised without causing embarrassment all round. I would like to see a giant iron statue in the square of a wizard, which has smoke coming from it on every hour and tells you the time, for the blind people especially, so they can hear the time. It is now 1 o'clock, and the smoke comes out, you know, and this would be a great attraction. There's a steam clock in Vancouver, but it's not that good. This would be something. Look, come and see the wizard clock, you know.
Why do you need the smoke though?
It's going to make it more important. And you use dry ice.
Dry ice. Oh yes.
It just looks good, and you got to.
It does look good.
That's better than
It would look good at night time too if it's
the
dry ice.
The eyes might light up, go red. Yeah. Red eyes could light up, LED or something. So I'm thinking in terms of things that I haven't found anywhere else. Coffee tables, vibrancy, that's everywhere. But
so LED lights. I'll write this down and I'll put this to the councillors. LED lights for your eyes.
Statue for the eyes, and
dry
the voice.
ice.
It speaks in this deep, growly voice at every hour.
So you want it to say the time too?
Yes,
and sort of
it is now 1 o'clock, and the eyes light up and the smoke comes out. And all the children wait for the air, you see, and they all come to listen.
I'm sort of thinking like the Jim Henson Company could make, you know, like Labyrinth had all those weird, wonderful creatures. That would be
We need more imagination to be used. Just putting in coffee tables, producers, a bunch of bureaucrats talking about their problems, you know, that's not interesting. This is for children, number one, and tourists, number two, and they're the ones who love the wizards. Wherever you go now, I mean, I'm on the trams free all the time. Today, there are 3 of us on the trams up and down the road there, getting off various places, the Ice Fest, and there's always children, look, Mummy, wizards! And there's 3 or 4 of us, not just one, wizards, they say, and out we get from the tram with their important star, looking very important, and all the Facebook pages are full of wizard pictures, and all the children come. So tourism, important for Christchurch. Children who have had a rough time lately too. I think it's good for us to think of them and do things that are right in the centre of a city, not in some office somewhere out in a park somewhere. So we're making the city come alive again in the centre.
I want to ask you that. I want to pick you up about children. Do you think in some respects, was it that we lose our ability to still be children when we're adults? We lose that ability, and it's a great shame to be
that's
kids.
The present worldview. In the worldview of most thinkers and scientists especially, we are machines. Now, I'm not a machine. I'm a monkey that likes having fun, that's all. And my birth sign for the Chinese calendar is monkey. And I like to tease and have fun and lark about because I'm an animal. I'm not a machine, but machines have to run on certain lines, and they go along this line and they believe at times one-dimensional, and off they go down the track. Now I'm looking down that line at the moment and I see disaster coming. But if we're ready, we'll have to have good family strength, we'll have to have lots of good community values to preserve ourselves against collapse.
How do we do that? Are we losing our sense of community in Christchurch? Are
Absolutely,
we losing our community,
yeah.
What it is to be a society as such?
Well, that's
and
the cathedral shows that, I think. The cathedral issue is showing it. It's an attempt to knock our cathedral down has been made from outside. It's not even a decision made by the people here. It's decided from outside. This must come down because we want to do our own thing. But it's the key to our community, among other things. There's also other parts of our community, the family structures. The welfare state more or less destroys families because it makes the nuclear family the only part there is, and makes easy divorce, so that soon collapses. You get children with 2 or 3 mums, 2 or 3 dads. This isn't a strong community. We need people who know each other and friends, not just in the family, but also in the suburbs, need little communities.
How do we get back to that? Because I feel we've lost that. And in fact, I'll tell you the one thing that the earthquakes may have done as a service to suburban communities, we actually got to know your neighbour, because whenever there was an earthquake, you would run outside and go, oh, g'day Pam or Susie or whatever, so you were forced to communicate with your neighbours.
Cope very well with disaster, but when the bosses don't like disasters, and they are themselves rather neurotic, so they panic quite often, and they say, you can't do that, I must do it for you. In other words, they don't trust people. This is the famous writing on this thing. It's happened in every major disaster. The top people panic. Ordinary folks sort things out. Now in Christchurch, we should have done that more than we did.
Well, I want to talk about the top people because you cast a spell on Sarah or something. You deconstructed Sarah. I want to come back.
Deconstruct Sarah as well.
I'd give you all power if I could to that. Don't you worry. So when we come back, we'll talk about deconstructing Sarah, the rebuild of Christchurch, and of course the cathedral. Welcome back to Lynched on CTV. My guest is the wonderful New Zealand wizard, or the Wizard of New Zealand. And I want to ask you this.
I'm actually an arch-wizard now.
I know, I should say that.
Yes.
So what does that actually mean, that you've now got apprentices with you?
Yeah,
so
well,
you move up the ranks.
Well, because I was able to actually appoint wizards. One turned up in America recently, and I went over there and met him in Philadelphia, and he's in Richmond, and he's got all the right skills to be a wizard on his own, poor fellow, stuck in America, but anyway. And the other 3 are Christchurch people. One of them is an oldest friend I've got in town who runs the Bush band, the Irish band, the Black Velvet band, who's a very popular band. Another one is also a musician. All musicians like being wizards. So they like music and art and all these things. And that's Ari. He's been recognised as a wizard at that 40th anniversary, which was held up at the gondola, up the clouds there. They just welcome aboard friends of mine.
I want to talk about that. Your 40th anniversary. I think about some photos of that too up on the gondola. What was that like? And you were were you celebrating 40 years of wizardry, 40 years of you in Christchurch?
That was the official.
40 years of glory wizardness.
There's also the solstice, which makes a good time to have it. It was the spring solstice, and we could appoint the other wizards. So I capped them, put the hat on, the whole thing, and there's the pirate band who provided the music for us. And it was a great ceremony because not only that, but Henry, the great gnomologist, managed to get his gnome to the North Pole. He'd been trying for ages. Yes, and there's King Arthur III of Ohoka. All friends of various types.
Okay. Who's the one on the left
that's
there?
a new movement starting. Fairies are beginning to appear. They're a rival group, really.
That's a new movement.
Yes.
Have you got a competition?
Yes, we have, and there's the monsters. They're also turning up. There's strange things are happening here in Christchurch. This is run by a woman who's a taxidermist, so the monsters are marvelled. That's Ari, and there's another. That's the fairy. They call her Pixie Pocket. She's a great craftswoman, makes wonderful costumes too. So we're all artistic types.
Can fairies and wizards cohabitate together?
Not easily, because fairies are out to give men a hard time, basically, to tease them.
She was quite good looking, though.
They all look all right, but the point is that their job is to annoy men and get up, but to please little girls, because little girls love fairies, and they go out with fairy dust. You see them do their fairy dust thing, and little girls love it. And they give them fairy dreams and things. But they are, unlike wizards who are dead serious, very important people with big ego trips going on. They're just mischievous.
Listen, in this announcement, you're looking for more wizards, right?
Yes, I'm recruiting from the over 60s mainly.
Oh, really?
From the shed men.
Okay. So is that why are you a fan of The Last of the Summer Wines? Because you realise that generation will know exactly what you're meaning?
Yeah.
That was a good show, though. That was on TV1
it's doing repeats
again.
It's on again. It's repeated on Sky at the moment.
It's always repeated on TV1 before the news. When they get stuck, if that's Wheel of Fortune's cancelled, they bring back either Friends or...
There's men having a good time, enjoying themselves and ignoring everyone around them, and having fun is the key to that. But it's not just that, but you get to wear hats, you have a nice staff, like the Boy Scouts, you just join in for a bit. Some will go once a week, some get interested in the ideas, and some will be just trainee types. So there's several types there. We can annoy the bureaucrats quite a lot. They don't like wizards, bureaucrats.
Don't they? Let's talk about bureaucrats. And one organisation that comes to mind is CERA, the Canterbury Earthquake Recovery Authority. We've got some footage of you, I think, when you were trying to deconstruct CERA.
I
So
have
we'll
a
take a look at
poster of
this.
the whole thing too. This will be outside. Oh, there it is.
There you are. And so what were you actually doing there? Tell me. Because that's pretty recent, isn't it?
It was about a year ago. It was time to look at the emergency legislation, which has been far too draconian, and which stops the any chance of heritage orders being maintained. They can do what they like. They can buy land off people compulsorily. They can knock down buildings they want to.
So in a way, I mean, although you're having a bit of fun, you're raising some awareness, you're letting off some firecrackers, but you do have a serious message behind this too, and it's one that's very dear to me, and that is, it's time for CERA to go, because although CERA was probably needed...
modified it, nothing else. That's why deconstruction's the right word. The bishop means grind the stones to dust. When I say deconstruction, I mean you take it down and carefully reassemble it in a more suitable form.
Look at you, you're doing good. I'm worried for you that you're going to fall off that concrete and hurt your back.
It was a little tiny, getting up there wasn't easy in my age. But I used to abseil down buildings. I'd done the cathedral once and down the Government Life building. I've done that in the early days of being a wizard, and they'll be shown on my postcard, which are due to come out soon.
Postcards?
Wizard postcards, just so the tourists can know what wizards get up to in the city, because it shows things that are unique to Christchurch, like the Principal Council Chambers and so on, and the Avon punting, and also wizards. So I get on well with the people on the punts, the trams and the gondola, and they're very important to Christchurch right now.
Let me ask you this question. You've had various different relationships with councillors, mayors, prime ministers over the years. In fact, you had quite a decent friendship, or a friendship with Prime Minister at the time, Mike Moore.
Absolutely. I stayed with him he's British ambassador. He's the New Zealand ambassador in the embassy in Washington. I stayed there a few months ago.
How did that relationship come to pass?
He likes fun, I think, and he's also self-educated, and that's important, not one of these churned out from the machine. And he also has a very nice wife, and that's a good sign, And he likes to be relaxed, and he has barbecues in the open air, and he does all the wrong things. He isn't stuffy. He's a man's man, and also the ordinary working men loved him. He'd be the best leader of Labour right now, in my opinion, because he relates to the working men and not to school teachers.
But he encouraged you to almost take your message as a wizard, whether it be tongue-in-cheek or serious, to the next level in a way, didn't he?
Yeah, he made it possible. He realised that although his cabinet members didn't always agree with him doing this, but to make this step was a courageous thing to do, because he was really attacked by other people in the government saying he's a silly individual, he's an idiot, you shouldn't be helping him. He said, no, he brings the tourists in. He cheers people up. What's wrong with that? He teases people who think they're clever, and this is my job.
What do you want to be remembered for?
I suppose pointing the way to a new world, another world, a much better design. I designed a cosmology in 1972, which is that already, waiting to go, but it's so complexly expressed. It takes a lot of reading and of documents and articles to find out why I'm saying this. It's no longer the world of Aristotle and Plato, and it fits in more what we call the axial age, when people like Buddha and Zoroaster and Confucius and the great prophets and the Greek philosophers like Heraclitus, they all turned up at the same time, because the Iron Age had come and it changed everything. Now we've got the Electric Age, and then it's changing everything just as radically as iron did. We're into a different world entirely because of electronic communication.
I thought you were going to say, I want to be remembered for making people laugh and think.
No, make them think, more like it.
Do you think you've made people think?
I think I have, yes. But not people who've got a vested interest in thinking the wrong things. This is people who are open, who don't have any reason. That's why at the Summer Wine programme, because they can philosophise lying on the hillside there, make remarks about the world. They're not bound by the need to please their bosses. And they've got to please their wives because they're not married. In fact, they're terrified of women, and they should be too. They're dangerous creatures.
I think we all are. Was it very nice to meet you? I wish you all the very best.
Yeah,
I hope you come see us again.
Okay, Chris, thank you very much.
The Wizard, everybody. That's our show. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a fabulous week. Lynched on CTV was proudly brought to you by Christchurch's #1 dining offer, Sequoia 88, at the Redwood Hotel, a food concept unequalled.